Wonderful.
A nobler world. Hugo Grenville's experience of war is different, modern. He's an artist and formerly a soldier who served in Northern Ireland and in Africa, but also went as a war artist, once he was a full-time painter, to Bosnia. He has an exhibition at Messam's Gallery on Cork Street, which I should say is not war pictures, it's very, very happy still lifes and portraits full of colour. But just tell me about the Bosnia thing. Was it influenced by the fact that you'd been a soldier? Is that why they sent you out? They felt you'd be able to do the war artist job more calmly, perhaps?
Well, I think that I was aided by the fact that my predecessor had been taken out of Bosnia on a stretcher, having seen a mass grave, and
you mean not injured, but actually
no, not injured. He
collapsed.
I mean, he was so traumatised by the thing, and I think anybody who saw those mass graves felt deeply moved and horrified and angry. But I suppose that because I had experienced Northern Ireland and the Civil War in what was then Rhodesia, there was a chance that I would sort of manage. But it did test one's abilities to survive in those sort of circumstances.
Does the professional soldier's eye give you a different eye, as a sort of a distancing from humanly terrible sights?
I think that there is and I'm sure William would agree with this, that something happens in the process of changing a sensitive and probably rather wet human being, as I certainly was as an 18-year-old, into a man who can sustain deprivation and hardship. And you learn some kind of professional detachment. I mean, you're not aware of the process, but it happens subliminally. But yes, I think, you know, the same way that an ambulance driver who's pulling people out of car crashes is presumably able to distance himself from that.
In a curious way, a painter sometimes has that detachment as well, doesn't he? You're painting a nude, and you're not necessarily thinking, here is a totally naked, strange woman. You're thinking, what an interesting plane of light there on the face, on the leg, on, you know, how that curve echoes that curve. So you've got a kind of professional detachment of your own as well on top of that.
Yes, I mean, lots of people think that being sort of locked up in my studio with beautiful women taking their clothes off is a sort of magnificent way of earning one's money, and a sort of splendid thing to be doing from 9 till 5. But actually, it's a sort of strangely clinical process, because once the lady has taken her clothes off and you've arranged her in the right position, you've decorated the composition with your apples, your bowl of apples and your French textiles or whatever it is, something else happens. There's a sort of alchemy at work, and suddenly you are actually expressing deep-seated feelings that you've nurtured or have been part of your life, and you're trying to express those things through the subject. So in a way the subject becomes irrelevant, and you look for the abstract elements in it, just as you say, like a line, like a touch of light catching the edge of a ceramic dish or whatever it is, and that suddenly communicates to you in an abstract way and unlocks an emotional response to the subject. So it's not quite as sexual as people think it might be. You're
a tremendous colourist. I mean, your paintings are fantastically colourful and bright, and in fact all this exhibition at Messam Street is full of light and sunlight and wonderful sort of food and apples and fruit and beautiful women and so on. I must say, I thought when I read about your military and your war artist background, I thought you were going to be more of a morose painter in tone, but you're the exact opposite, aren't you?
Well, I had the morose period. In fact, I had a morose period that ended with a bonfire in which I burnt 2 years' work. I dragged these canvases out.
It was all a lot of dark blue and
it had got very dark and very depressing. And I'd gone down a sort of cul-de-sac, and I needed to reverse out of it very smartly. So I think really the point of painting for me is to make a better world in paint. I mean, life is difficult. Everybody finds living, the experience of life is not easy. So I want to paint pictures that allow people to tap into a sort of a spiritual and emotional world, which is full of hope and perhaps at times better than the one that they're experiencing. I think you can rise above your circumstances through art.
Well, a bit like Bill and his young friends whooping it up in London.
Absolutely.
Riding motorbikes around with wafts on the back to the theatre. In the catalogue, you've done an interesting thing that each painting, well, a lot of the paintings, are linked with poems by Philip Wells. You're linking poems and paintings together. Not all painters welcome that, do they? I mean, some painters absolutely hate people trying to put stuff into words. Emotions into words inspired by them. What made you want to do it?
Well, I think Philip and I met last summer, and we met at a party. We got talking, and I think we both felt that there was a similarity between the two media that we were working in. I mean, I think if you initially listen to a poem, you perhaps hear the rhythm, the meter, and the sound of the words, rather than the literal meaning of the words. And I think it's exactly the same in looking at pictures. You look at a picture and you're drawn in by the marks the painter's made on the canvas, or by a splodge of colour which resonates with you, before you see the subject. And I think we realised that because there was this abstract element in our art, and that we were both, in a way, similar types of emotional people who needed a vehicle to express these emotions, that we really should try and do something together. And I think what is extraordinary with Philip's poetry is that it has given the viewer an access point, a completely different access point to the pictures. So, for instance, there's a big yellow and orange still life, which is the sort of centrepiece of the painting. And he's written a line which says, I am the song of light. And I think those words are so beautiful, and I wouldn't have come up with words to describe a very colorist picture. I couldn't have come up with those words, but he did, and in a way he teases out.
So he's the first responder to the paintings.
He is the first responder, and he's made me look at pictures I've done and realise that he's actually teased out these sort of subconscious intentions in my work that I hadn't, I wasn't aware of.
We should just mention that, rather like John Bryant coaching runners, you're coaching, you're doing some teaching masterclasses in your house in Suffolk, aren't you? You're teaching people actually to draw properly and all that sort of thing.
Well, we try to. Yes, we do a month of tuition in the summer, and well, as you say, as you intimate, we do get a lot of students who have been to art schools here and have found that conventional drawing, the life model, all that sort of stuff is not part of the current experience in a BA course. It's unusual to have drawing teaching, so we try and give some of the sort of technical stuff that I think you do need. I mean, you need to learn your craft before you can. There's a military maxim: you have to learn to march in step before you can march out of step. Once you've learned to march in step, then you can do the hokey cokey, whatever it is.
I think you're quite right. This coaching, performing continuum which you're talking about here, I mean, I think these paintings are fantastic because you can draw, you can use colour. These are like flying a Spitfire on canvas. And
John's going to take over this show. You can bring everybody together. That was me thinking I'd never get Spitfires in there.
But they are fantastic. And in your book you talk about the value of the people who teach other people to fly. These are some of the most respected figures that come through your book.
And we should mention that one of them was Ian Duncan Smith's old man.